Advertising has been around for a long time and as such has seen quite a few takes on it. In the modern era, for a product or brand, it often involves media such as commercials, videos, posts online, and even still the occasional contest or giveaway. These can be pretty run-of-the-mill and generic, but also sometimes very memorable, becoming a part of the popular zeitgeist of the time. On other occasions, they can be controversial and cause a bit of a stir for any number of reasons. However, one that sort of fits the bill for all of these, but also in a way didn't, was a bizarre mail-in promotion for Barq's root beer, which in 1992 had its Soviet Union going out of business sale. This bizarre story actually starts in the 1980s, a period interesting for a plethora of reasons, from music, TV, and movies, to video games, fashion, and for our story, the final full decade of the Cold War, which witnessed the relationship between the US and USSR getting better only after getting worse. This was seen pretty evidently by 1985, with a media trend seemingly reaching a zenith within the United States, depicting the Soviet Union and its people, mostly in the form of the armed forces, at worst negatively and at best stereotypically. Popular films like Red Dawn, Rocky IV, and Rambo II recently had or would showcase Russians as overly zealous enemies of the United States, hell-bent on stopping capitalism and the American way, with a few more to come afterwards. Though now often looked at as goofy, over-the-top action movies fueled by nostalgia, at the time some were concerned that this uptick in negative portrayals would unravel the slowly warming of relations and cooling of tensions between the US and USSR after a period of regression. Coincidentally, that same year, the Geneva Summit was to be held in November between US President Ronald Reagan and Soviet General Secretary Mikhail Gorbachev, who were to meet for the first time to ramp up the possibility of improving diplomatic relations while also discussing the ramping down of the arms race. However, though these examples were in the form of movies seen by millions going to theaters, there was another one that was far more extensive and constant: television commercials. That year, a number of companies began using Russians and the Soviet Union as a punchline or vehicle to convey a message about their product, with one of the most famous being a Miller Lite ad with Russian comedian Yakov Smirnov saying his popular bit.
In America, there is plenty of light beer and you can always find a party. In Russia, party always finds you.
Throughout the year, numerous other ones marketing products and businesses of all sizes were seen, like Meisterbrau beer, also owned by Miller, which depicted members of a Soviet embassy arguing about the price and quality of the beer, only to discover another had been embezzling the rest to
buy big American automobile.
Also getting into the action was another beverage brand, RC Cola, which in its commercial said how both Coca-Cola and Pepsi were within the Soviet Union, but that a few rebellious people chose RC Cola. Now, arguably the largest, which caused a bit of a stir, was one made for the fast food chain Wendy's, showcasing a Soviet fashion show, making the point that having no choice is no fun, but at Wendy's you can choose fresh and from a variety of ingredients. Though some were quick to point out how this poking fun at the USSR could hurt diplomatic relations, this sudden influx of commercials was simply shrugged off as synchronicities among brands and agencies, while those involved or knowledgeable on related matters chalked it up to a few things, such as many within the Western world, especially the United States, being adamant and comfortable with the lead they had over the Soviet Union in many areas, the Soviets being pushed to the back of many people's minds during the 1970s due to detente and the series of friendly meetings between Western leaders and the Soviets, which laid out things like limiting arms production and the expansion of liberties in certain areas of Eastern Europe, which in many ways was really only seen on paper, only to be brought back to the forefront during the late 70s into the early and mid 80s due to things like the war in Afghanistan, the Central American crisis, the Solidarity movement in Poland, and perhaps most significant of all, a mix-up of leaders and stances on both sides, such as Ronald Reagan in the US, Margaret Thatcher in the UK, and the series of Soviet ones, starting with Leonid Brezhnev, who died in 1982 and was succeeded by Yuri Andropov until 1984 when he died and was replaced by Konstantin Chernenko, who stayed in power until 1985 when he died and Mikhail Gorbachev took over. And finally, all of this being broadcast on TV in a much more frequent and constant way, with heightened emphasis on Soviet leaders who started to be seen in the West a lot more often, culminating with Gorbachev. Anyway though, as the decade came to a close, it became clear the Soviet Union was running on fumes, and it was only a matter of time until something big would happen, which eventually came on December 26, 1991, when the USSR collapsed and officially dissolved. Overnight, the country saw the end of the Soviet Party's control and the official policy of communism. However, it wasn't as simple as a flag lowering on TV. Changes in administrations from people to symbols, elections, and economic and political instability were some of the many things which lay ahead for Russia. But back in the United States, one employee of a beverage company was watching TV and between the news and a commercial break, got an idea. Enter Barq's, a beverage company which since 1898 had been bottling and selling root beer. Having a bit of a back and forth history between bottling locations as well as separate companies sharing the same name, in 1976 the larger and primary iteration was bought by two Johns, John Out and Corner, who quickly began to promote the company and its root beer nationwide. Though seeing a series of legal issues surrounding copyright, distribution, and name disputes, by the early 1990s Barq's had grown in sales and popularity, but still wasn't quite up there with the more well-known brands such as Pepsi-Cola and Coca-Cola. It was also around this time the company began to shift its advertising away from more traditional and PG themes to more unorthodox and niche ones, as it partnered with the horror movie franchise A Nightmare on Elm Street for their sixth entry, Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, as well as MTV's Headbangers Ball, a TV show which essentially played heavy metal music videos. However, for 1992, Rick Hill, the then vice president of marketing, who for the previous years had been known for taking gambles with the brand and advertising overall, had to again figure out a strategy to keep things going. With the summer months being one of the largest for beverage companies, Hill originally wanted to focus on a likely imminent Elvis Presley craze that was reigniting within the United States due to the 15th anniversary of his death, not to mention the fact he was born in a town nearby their headquarters, with his a hunk of burning lugs campaign, a play on one of the lyrics from Presley's 1972 song Burning Love. This essentially would see the company buying one of Elvis's Cadillacs, cut it up and offer the pieces to those who bought Barq's and send in a proof of purchase. The Presley estate was all for it, but in December requested a $1 million licensing fee, which was over 10 times the entire marketing budget for the campaign. Being back at square one and only having until January to come up with a new plan, Hill got his idea after watching the news of the end of the Soviet Union coming on Christmas. From what's said, as he was watching the coverage of it, a gimmicky commercial for rugs and appliances that pushed the "We've lost our lease and everything must go" method of advertising came on. Putting two and two together, the idea popped into his head of doing the same thing but with Soviet knickknacks and collectibles. When he returned to work and pitched his idea to John Corner, he, quote, just stared at me and finally said, "Do you have anything else?" After saying no, Corner simply shrugged and replied, "Go with it." And so on January 2nd, the idea was made officially into the Soviet Union going out of business sale campaign, which quickly caught the attention of news outlets who found the concept amusing. However, the Associated Press said they were going to send down a photographer to take a few pictures of some items that would be offered. The problem was they didn't have anything yet, as all the items they were planning to get were still in Russia. So Hill essentially pulled a fast one by getting a friend of his up in New York to make a trip to the Brooklyn neighborhood of Brighton Beach, known for its large population of former Soviet residents, mainly from Russia and Ukraine, thus its nickname of Little Russia and Little Odessa, to grab anything he could related to the USSR. Getting just enough for a mock-up, the session went off without a hitch, but now the real work had to begin, actually sourcing large quantities of Soviet memorabilia and militaria for the promotion from the now former Soviet Union. On January 22nd, Hill and an attorney ventured off to Russia with $70,000 and in 10 days managed to fill an entire shipping container with 4,000 pounds, or about 1,814 kilograms of goods for the promotion, and according to him, the country had just gone to hell and the only people able to do any business were the criminals. What was purchased? Well, all sorts of things, but in his own words, Matryoshka dolls, Lenin Day pins, tank commander watches, and military medals. We even had complete Soviet Army uniforms as bottlers' premiums. Of course, we were offered MiGs and tanks, but we declined. Kicking off on May 1st, chosen specifically to coincide with May Day, now known in Russia as the Day of Spring and Labor, which since 1918 had been the Soviet Union's Labor Day, the campaign was marketed a few different ways, from the simple such as print media seen in magazines and stores, radio ads, and most notably a 30-second TV spot sporting comical edits and dubs such as these.
The Soviet Union is out of business and Gorby's loss is your gain. This is a once-in-a-lifetime offer, so quit stalling, pick up Barq's and take a bite out of communism today!
Running until September 6th, the day before Labor Day in the United States that year, it saw 12 packs and 2-liter bottles marked with the promotion and primarily came down to being able to either win prizes hidden in hollow 12-ounce cans or having customers send in their proof of purchases and receive a few Soviet mementos. Additionally, Spy magazine, a satirical publication, partnered with them to an extent and as such had a mail-in offer of their own. where readers had to send in their Best Soviet or Commonwealth of Independent States joke, with a chance to win a variety of prizes, such as the same items Barq's offered, his and her Soviet watches, specially made t-shirts, and of course root beer. So let's actually take a look at one of the most common items received by participants. Essentially, it was a small hinged plastic box bearing 2 pieces of paper. The first was the promo card for the campaign, labeled Barq's Soviet Stuff 1992 on one side, and on the other a basic breakdown of the collapse of the Soviet Union, how the items that were given away from the promotion were acquired from factories and storehouses in Moscow, and what some of the items actually were, along with their symbolism and significances. The second piece of paper was a little more bizarre. Being a tie-in with Spy magazine, it too was double-sided. However, it wasn't informational but rather a rub-and-stick temporary tattoo made to look like Mikhail Gorbachev's birthmark, with one side being the actual tattoo and the other displaying directions with the header, "Now you can look just like Gorby." Additionally, they came with 4 items which range greatly, often seeing worker, civilian, and sports pins, veteran and armed forces badges and medals, stamps, ribbons, and past rally or event material, to name a few. This particular one has a ribbon which says "Glory to October," featuring the cruiser Aurora, which became synonymous with the events in 1917 and was likely worn during an October Revolution Day parade, a flag pin featuring the profile of Vladimir Lenin, a 1976 dated postage stamp commemorating Yuri Gagarin, and a pin stating "Glory to the Soviet Army." So how well did this promotion go over? Overall, pretty good. With a budget of $750,000, which covered everything, Barq saw sales for that period increase by 30% compared to 1991, nominations and awards within the corporate and marketing sphere, and some 30,000 mail-ins being received. On the social side of things, it didn't really seem to cause any major outcry or stir, and was overall received rather well, at least in the US, and in a way was really the final large-scale instance where the Soviet Union was used as a means for advertising, with really the only other one that came after being a 1998 Pizza Hut commercial starring Mikhail Gorbachev, which leaned a bit more into the state of Russia and its people's views on him rather than poking fun at the USSR directly. But at the end of the day, in Rick Hill's own words, the biggest surprise was that Barq's held the only organized celebration of the end of the Cold War. Now, though the promotion lasted for a period of just around 4 months over 3 decades ago, it still remains significant for a few reasons. Though mostly forgotten by many, save for some marketing people, a few collectors, and the occasional post about it online, it can be seen as the start of the post-Cold War collecting boom. That is, the doors opening to Soviet and really many former Eastern Bloc items, be they collectibles like pins and patches, to Militaria, and really the countries as a whole. As the 1990s progressed and Russia, along with the former socialist republics and those within the Soviet sphere, restructured their countries, many came in to see what they had to offer, and because a major aspect of the Cold War was about arms and armies, a huge portion of that came down to physical items like the ones just mentioned. Collectors' markets were flooded with all sorts of things, from East German equipment and uniforms to Soviet Ushankas and those mocked-up Pilotkas, with all the pins and patches, to name a few. These often were offered by businesses and companies which bought them in bulk and shipped them abroad, but also by more local means, such as residents of these countries selling them to tourists and foreigners who were now able to visit and travel around much easier. As far as the items related to the giveaway, you can still occasionally come across some prizes in their original packaging with the paperwork as well as promotional material made to market it. Additionally, larger collections will also be seen, as there were a few instances where collectors actually collected them for the purposes of making said collection. But just keep in mind, in both cases, most of the items they gave away aren't really that valuable nor hard to source, as they can still frequently be found in the markets of Eastern Europe or eBay. If anything, the Barq's material advertising the actual campaign would be scarcer and more sought after now. But looking back, one could say that because Barq's, a root beer company which went from conceptualizing the campaign during the week of the Soviet Union's collapse to actually buying the materials for it less than a month later, was one of the earliest instances of an entity buying a large quantity of Soviet memorabilia and collectibles for the purposes of distributing it to not only a Western market, but really any market outside of the Union, which is honestly pretty remarkable and, put bluntly, a little silly. If you're not keen on the video's upload date, it's April Fool's Day 2025, and though on this channel this day is used to cover out their topics, this one wasn't really presented in a way where it was trying to pull a prank or fast one, as the story and its related items are just so absurd and in a way humorous, it's nearly unbelievable. Hopefully though, it was entertaining and informative whatever way you look at it, but while looking, maybe peek down and consider clicking those like and subscribe buttons to help out the channel. If you're not feeling like clicking, that's all good, just be sure to pop back in soon for more videos right here on Uniform History. Oh, also, if you think about it, Barq's may be the reason root beer in general nowadays has that more absurdist following and online presence. You know, all those weird memes, posts, and videos along with the jokes about taste tests and such? Anyway, yeah, okay, bye.